Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. It was a Friday night and I was home alone swiping away on the latest trendy dating app, procrastinating it again instead of being productive. I hadn't had much luck meeting anyone genuine on these apps lately, just a bunch of creepy men looking for a hookup. But still, some optimistic part of me held out hope that maybe my match was out there, so I persisted. As I mindlessly thumbed through profile after profile, one caught my eye. He was attractive, had a good job, and his bio made him seem down to earth and funny. After some brief messaging back and forth, we really hit it off. The conversation flowed smoothly and he came across as very charming. When he asked if I'd like to meet for drinks that night, throwing caution to the wind, I said yes. We made plans to meet at a popular local bar. I took extra time getting ready, carefully picking out my cutest date outfit and even curling my hair. I dabbed in a bit of perfume and gave myself an encouraging pep talk in the mirror. I knew meeting an online stranger alone at night wasn't the safest idea, but the bar would be crowded and I had pepper spray in my purse just in case. This could finally be my chance at making a real connection. When I arrived at the bar, I immediately spotted my date waiting by the doorway. He looked just like his photos, tall and handsome with bright green eyes and a warm smile. We exchanged slightly awkward hellos, and he suggested we grab a booth. At the table, we ordered drinks and appetizers to share. The conversation started out a bit stilted, but soon we both relaxed and he had me laughing at funny work stories. I was really enjoying his company and started to think maybe this would turn into something more. About 45 minutes into the date, however, things started taking a strange turn. I began feeling uncomfortably dizzy and lightheaded. At first, I thought maybe I was just nervous or it was hitting me how much wine I'd already drank, but the feeling intensified by the minute until it became impossible to focus on what my date was saying. The room felt like it was spinning and lights seemed to glare too brightly. I had to grip the table to keep steady. Panic flooded my mind as I realized this was far beyond just feeling tipsy. My drink must have been drugged when I left it briefly unattended to use the restroom. Fear pulsed through me as it sunk in that I was completely helpless and at the mercy of this stranger I'd put too much trust in. I tried subtly using my cell phone under the table to dial for help, but my motor skills were too impaired at this point. My date quickly noticed the shift and suddenly dropped the charming act. A sinister, threatening expression clouded his once handsome face. He told me that trying to call for help would be useless, and that I should cooperate if I knew what was good for me. I wanted to run to scream, but my body felt paralyzed and numb. All I could do was slump there defenseless, my fate unknown. This was the last place I wanted to be helpless and alone with a predator, but no one else in the crowded bar noticed my distress. My date forcefully pulled me up, practically carrying my limp body out a side door into an alleyway. I fought desperately to resist, but couldn't seem to make my muscles obey my will. The cool night air brought me somewhat back to my senses, though everything still seemed hazy and discombobulated. My date kept me pinned against the grimy alley wall, rifling through my purse to take my money and anything else of value. I managed to mutter, "Please don't hurt me," my tongue feeling thick and foreign in my mouth. He just snickered, saying he would take what he wanted. In a moment of sheer adrenaline, I managed to knee him in the groin and lurch away unsteadily back toward the street. I could hear his footsteps close behind me, but thankfully a crowd of bar patrons on the sidewalk slowed his pursuit enough for me to get to my car. My vision blurring in and out, I struggled to get my key in the ignition. At last successful, I sped away just as my pursuer burst out of the alley. I drove off erratically, weaving between lanes, just focused on getting somewhere safe. The whole horrific ordeal kept replaying in my mind. I finally arrived home, though I have no recollection of the actual drive. I must have been functioning on pure instinct in survival mode. I locked all my doors and collapsed on my bed, pulse still racing. As the drugs slowly metabolized out of my system, waves of panic and anger washed over me at how foolish I had been. I kept imagining how much worse that night could have ended if I hadn't managed that timely escape. The what-ifs tormented my exhausted mind. I wanted to report the incident, but without proof, I knew the police were unlikely to pursue some random sketchy Tinder date. The whole traumatic ordeal left me determined to be much more cautious and vigilant. I deleted all my dating apps, uncomfortable with the vulnerability that comes with trusting strangers. When I eventually do try dating again, I certainly won't repeat my mistake of agreeing to meet in such an isolated setting. This horror story taught me the importance of protecting myself and being aware that predators do hide behind seemingly harmless dating profiles. I'm grateful I escaped relatively unscathed, but I will carry the cautionary tale of that night forever. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon when I decided to take a chance and meet up with my newest match from the dating app. We had been chatting for a few weeks and really seemed to hit it off. Their name was Brandon, and in our messages they came across as laid back, thoughtful, and funny. I was excited to see if our connection would translate to real life. We agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown. I arrived a little early and chose a table by the window where I could watch for their arrival. I felt my stomach fluttering with anticipation as I sipped my coffee and made small talk with the waitress. Right on time, I saw Brandon strolling down the sidewalk towards the cafe entrance. It looked just like their photos, tall and slender, with warm brown eyes and a bright smile. I waved as they entered, feeling optimistic that this could be the start of something special. "Hi, you must be Sasha," Brandon said as they approached my table. Their voice was smooth and cheerful. "That's me," I smiled. "It's so nice to finally meet you." The conversation started off light as we ordered drinks and snacks. Brandon asked about my job as a teacher, my hobbies, my family background. I got the impression they were really making an effort to get to know me. Their eyes were attentive, often lingering on my face, and nodding as I spoke. After about half an hour, though, I noticed the conversation taking a bit of an uncomfortable turn. Brandon began asking questions that seemed intrusive, wanting to know my exact home address, pressing for details on past relationships and why they ended. Their tone had shifted slightly, becoming more intense and serious. I tried to keep things friendly and surface level, redirecting with questions about Brandon's work and interests. But they seemed dissatisfied with my vague responses, continuing to dig deeper into aspects of my life I preferred to keep private. "I feel like you're holding back on me, Sasha," Brandon said, furrowing their brow. "If we're going to make this work between us, we need honesty and openness, don't you think?" I began to feel uneasy. We had only just met. Yet they were talking about making this work between us and demanding intimate details I wasn't ready to share. As the date wore on, I found myself shrinking back into my seat, generating short replies in hopes of ending the interrogation. But Brandon pressed further, their gaze intense and unsettling. They began making critical remarks about my appearance, questioning my choice of outfit, telling me I should wear my hair differently. I was stunned by this unsolicited feedback. When the waitress returned, I quickly asked for the check, ready to make my exit. But Brandon insisted on paying, saying what kind of date would I be if I didn't take care of my girl. Their presumptuous pet name for me made me cringe. As we walked out of the cafe, Brandon moved closer, linking arms with me and steering us down the street. It leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "Why don't we head back to your place and continue this lovely date?" I recoiled, gently removing my arm from their grip. "Actually, I have plans this evening," I lied. "I should really be heading home." Brandon's eyes flashed with anger for a moment before their expression returned to a tense smile. "No problem. We'll plan something soon. I'll walk you to your car." I didn't dare mention I had taken the bus. We walked in uncomfortable silence until we reached the parking garage where I pretended I had left my car. I said a quick goodbye before hurrying towards the bus stop, resisting the urge to glance back. Once safely aboard the bus, I took deep breaths to compose myself as I replayed the bizarre events of the afternoon. Brandon had seemed so charming and thoughtful at first, but quickly morphed into someone controlling, critical, and entitled. I felt guilty for lying, but knew in my gut I had made the right call to get away from them as fast as possible. Over the next few days, Brandon bombarded me with calls and messages, long voicemails asking why I was ignoring them, analyzing everything that happened on our date, trying to convince me to see them again. Their persistence was unnerving. I decided to be direct, sending Brandon a message clearly stating I didn't think we were a match and wishing them the best in their search. Their response was a tirade of abusive language and hurtful observations about me, confirming I had made the right decision by ending contact. I blocked their number and deleted my dating profile, needing time away after this disturbing experience. It saddened me that some I had such high hopes for turned out to be so toxic, but it also empowered me to trust my instincts and remove myself from any situation that seems dangerous or controlling. When I do give dating another try, I will be far more cautious, keeping personal details private and interactions limited until I really know someone. Brandon taught me we can't take people at face value, even if initial impressions seem positive. I'm grateful I got out of that situation relatively unscathed, but it has forever changed my perspective on modern dating and reaffirmed the importance of protecting myself, both physically and emotionally. My sense of caution has been heightened, but so has my self-respect. After yet another weekend spent binge-watching Netflix and eating takeout alone, I finally caved to months of nagging from my friends and downloaded one of those trendy new dating apps. At first, I was pretty skeptical that I'd actually meet anyone worthwhile on there. I mean, how well can you really get to know someone through a few photos, some clever quotes, and superficial stats? But hey, I figured it couldn't hurt to try. Plus, maybe getting out there and going on a few dates would help get me out of my post-breakup rut. So I spent one rainy Saturday afternoon creating my profile. I picked a cute but not overly flattering photo, listed my basic stats and interests, and tried my best to seem witty yet genuine in the bio and prompts. Satisfied, I officially joined the world of online dating. The first few days on the app were predictably dull. I swiped through countless nearly identical bros and hipster girls, rolling my eyes at all the cliché profiles boasting about loving hiking, craft beer, and the office. I messaged back and forth with a few matches, but the conversations quickly fizzled out. By midweek, I was just about ready to delete the stupid app altogether. But then, a notification popped up showing I had a new match. Sarah. I clicked over to her profile and was immediately intrigued. Sarah had these warm, friendly eyes and a bright, genuine smile that seemed to radiate through the screen. Her bio made me literally laugh out loud, which never happens. We just seemed to have the exact same offbeat sense of humor and interests. I couldn't wait to keep chatting with her. Over the next few days, Sarah and I messaged constantly, the conversation flowing smoothly like we'd known each other for ages. We loved the same obscure podcasts and indie bands, had the same cynical take on politics and pop culture, and could make each other crack up effortlessly. I found myself getting butterflies every time a new notification from her popped up. It seemed too good to be true that I could connect so deeply with someone I'd met online. By the end of the week, we decided to finally meet up in person. We chose a cozy cafe downtown for our first date spot. I arrived early, suddenly nervous now that this was real. I tried to shake it off, reminding myself I was probably working this up in my head and needed to just relax and have fun. Right on time, I saw Sarah walk in, looking just as cute as her pictures. Any nerves melted away as she gave me a warm hug. Over coffee and pastries, we picked up right where our messaging left off, chatting and laughing nonstop about everything under the sun. Sarah was just so easy to talk to, and so warm and engaging. 2 hours flew by in what felt like minutes. I found myself hanging on her every word, utterly charmed. Eventually, Sarah said she had to get going for an important work call. I tried not to seem too disappointed that the date was ending. We lingered a bit longer, neither of us quite ready for this perfect afternoon to be over. Finally, we walked out together, making loose plans to meet up again soon. I floated home feeling lighter and more hopeful than I had in ages. Later that night, as I replayed each moment, I started to notice some peculiar things about Sarah. She had made a few references to political events from decades ago that seemed oddly detailed for someone our age. She also knew some suspicious inside information about the company I worked for. And she had talked about traveling to this very random, obscure country. When I asked about it, she quickly changed the subject. At first, I tried shrugging it off, telling myself I was overanalyzing, being paranoid. But I just couldn't shake the weird sense that something was amiss. Almost against my will, I found myself deep diving online, searching for Sarah and trying to piece together clues. And that's when I found it, an old news article. It showed a mugshot of a woman who looked uncannily like Sarah. But her name wasn't Sarah at all. It was Samantha. And Samantha had gone missing months ago after allegedly embezzling money from her employer and fleeing the country. My heart sank. This woman I had bonded so deeply with was definitely the criminal from the article. Everything about her, from her name to her stories, was completely fabricated. I felt so stupid remembering how easily I trusted her, been drawn in by her charm. Who knew what she really wanted from me? I immediately called the police and told them about meeting Samantha. Over the next few anxious weeks, I cut off contact, changed my passwords, and waited to hear she'd been found. Sure enough, about a month later, I got a call that Samantha had been arrested on fraud charges after scamming another lonely single man. Apparently, she'd been running romance cons for years, manipulating trusting people under fake identities to steal their money. I shuddered, realizing how close I'd come to being a victim. These days, I'm much more cautious about meeting anyone for online. I know now you can never be too skeptical, even if someone seems as genuine as Samantha first appeared. Under the charming exterior could lurk dark secrets and ill intentions. I pay close attention to any red flags and trust my gut over my emotions. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I won't let my desperation for love make me vulnerable ever again. My experience has certainly made me much wiser about protecting myself out there. I still can't believe the absolute nightmare I went through last week thanks to that cursed dating app. It was a typical Friday night and I was bored at home, scrolling through social media and seeing all my friends out living their best lives. The loneliness and FOMO got to me, so I decided to download this hot new dating app called Swipe that had been popping up in ads everywhere. My best friend Jenny had raved about how she met her new boyfriend on Swipe, and a few other acquaintances tagged the app in their Instagram stories with cute couple selfies. I tried to ignore the nagging feeling that dating apps were sketchy, instead letting myself get excited at the prospect of meeting someone new. I picked out a few flattering selfies and answered the prompts to describe myself minus 29. Marketing manager, loves traveling, yoga, and wine nights with the girls. I started swiping, occasionally stopping to chat with a few guys who seemed nice and normal enough. Lots of generic profiles, corny jokes, shirtless gym mirror pics, but nothing too creepy off the bat. After about an hour of swiping, I came across Tyler's profile. He was 31, an accountant, and we had so much in common. Hiking, cooking, favorite TV shows, even the same hometown. His pictures showed a handsome, friendly-looking guy with warm brown eyes behind hipster glasses. He seemed like total boyfriend material. Tyler messaged me immediately saying I was the most beautiful woman he'd seen on the app. I blushed reading the compliment, surprised such an attractive, successful guy was interested in me. We started chatting and really hit it off. The conversation flowed easily, and he asked thoughtful questions about my job, family, and hobbies. After a week or so of nonstop messaging, Tyler finally asked me out on a proper date. He said he didn't want to play games and felt a real connection with me. I was over the moon. We made plans to meet that Saturday night at a trendy new bar downtown. I spent all day getting ready, exfoliating, blow-drying my hair, and trying on outfit after outfit. This was the most excited I'd been for a date in years. I got to the bar early, waiting nervously on a stool, sipping a glass of white wine. When Tyler walked in, he looked even better than his photos. Tall, athletic build, adorable dimples. He gave me a hug and complimented my dress. We sat at a table, and it was like time flew by as we chatted and laughed over drinks. Multiple times he reached over to tuck my hair behind my ear or squeeze my hand, giving me butterflies. After bar hopping all night, Tyler asked if I wanted to share an Uber back to his place. I was pretty tipsy and thought, why the hell not? We hooked up, and it was great. Lying there in the afterglow, Tyler stroked my hair and admitted no girl he'd met before understood him like I did. I felt on top of the world. This amazing guy really liked me. The next morning, Tyler made me coffee and omelets at his place before I had to go to work. He kissed me goodbye and said he couldn't wait to see me again soon. I was over the moon. All day at work, I kept checking my phone, giddy each time I saw a new message from Tyler telling me how special I was. 3 days later, everything came crashing down. I was in the middle of a marketing meeting when my phone rang, showing an unknown caller ID. Figuring it was a spam robocall, I sent it to voicemail. A minute later, they called back twice in a row. Annoyed, I stepped out to answer and tersely said, "Hello." That's when a woman's shrill, angry voice came through the speaker. "Who is this?" she demanded. "Why the hell have you been sleeping with my husband, Tyler?" My heart dropped and I froze. What husband? This had to be some kind of sick prank. I stammered, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I think you have the wrong number." "Oh, cut the crap," she said. "I saw all the disgusting texts between you two. How could you sleep with a married man and think there wouldn't be consequences, you homewrecker? I was shaking in disbelief and horror as the truth set in. Tyler had a wife. I felt ill, violated, and ashamed even though I did nothing wrong. I tried to explain it was an honest mistake, but the woman kept shouting insults and curses at me. Then she said something that turned my blood cold. I know where you work, and if you contact my husband again, I will come find you. Then the line went dead. I started hyperventilating, tears welling up in my eyes. My hands trembled so badly I dropped my phone. How could this be happening? I felt so betrayed by Tyler's deception. Missing the rest of the meeting, I locked myself in a bathroom stall and completely broke down. The next few days were a fog of fear and anxiety. I didn't respond to Tyler's messages. I kept imagining his wife storming into my office, screaming and attacking me. Every unexpected sound at work made me jolt and panic, and I barely slept or ate anything. By some miracle, Tyler's wife didn't show up again, but I was completely shaken, constantly looking over my shoulder. I quit using any dating apps, too scared I'd unknowingly be labeled a homewrecker again. It's been about 2 weeks now, but I'm still struggling to move on from the trauma. I feel tainted and untrusting of men. It angers me that Tyler is the one who caused all this damage by his deception, but I'm the one suffering. I know logically it's not my fault, but I feel so violated and ashamed. My confidence is totally shot. I keep asking myself, how could I not have realized Tyler was married? Did I miss obvious red flags? I know sharing his deceit was wrong, but did I deserve to be punished and scared like that? I'm trying to be more compassionate with myself, but it's hard. I really thought Tyler was this amazing, caring guy. Turns out he was just using me for sex and ego strokes. I feel disgusted thinking about how intimate we were. I don't know when or if I'll ever trust someone enough to date again. For now, I'm steering clear of any and all dating apps. So there is the twisted tale of how my dating app experiment went horribly awry. I wouldn't wish this kind of traumatic deception and harassment on anyone. I guess the only upside is, at least it's made for quite a cautionary tale to warn my single friends to be careful with online dating. Mrnightmare. Hopefully now I can finally start to move on from the horror and occur of it all. But deep down, I know a scar like this doesn't ever fully heal. It all started out so innocently, just another match on Bumble, you know. I'd been on the app for a few months at that point, going on dates here and there, but nothing had really stuck. So when I matched with this girl named Tiffany, I figured why not give it a shot. Tiffany's profile was cute. She had these big green eyes and dimples when she smiled. Her bio said she liked hiking, yoga, and scary movies, interests we clearly had in common. When she messaged me first with a cheeky emoji and asked how my weekend was, I took it as a good sign. We started chatting and really hit it off right away. The conversation flowed easily with lots of banter and joking around. Within a few days, we had moved things to text and were texting constantly, morning to night. I learned that Tiffany had just moved to the city for a new job, so she didn't know many people yet. She was excited when I suggested meeting up for a drink later that week. Our first date went even better than I could have imagined. We met at a cool speakeasy bar downtown, and conversation came just as easily face to face. Tiffany was so warm and bubbly, she kept touching my arm flirtatiously as we talked and laughed. We closed down the bar and even kissed a bit before heading our separate ways home. Over the next few weeks, Tiffany and I fell into an easy routine. We'd go out a couple times a week, checking out new restaurants, hitting the hiking trails, or just snuggling up to binge watch a show at either of our apartments. Things were progressing nicely, and I could feel myself catching feelings. After about a month of dating, I worked up the nerve to ask if she wanted to be exclusive. To my delight, Tiffany agreed, albeit a bit hesitantly. I was too over the moon to notice the slight apprehension in her voice. The following weekend, my friend Dan was hosting a big house party, and I couldn't wait to bring Tiffany as my date. She seemed a little unsure about going at first, but eventually gave in to my pleas. I picked her up and noticed she was dressed a bit more casually than usual, but didn't think much of it. When we arrived at the party, I quickly did the rounds to say hey to people while Tiffany grabbed us drinks. We ended up in the kitchen chatting with the usual crew. Dan, my buddy Chris and his girlfriend, and a few others floating in and out. I had my arm around Tiffany and was all smiles, so proud to show her off. After about an hour, I realized I had lost track of Tiffany. I glanced around but didn't see her familiar face in the kitchen or living room. Assuming she was just in the bathroom, I kept talking to Chris about our upcoming fantasy football draft. That's when things started to get odd. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Tiffany across the room, laughing with some guy I'd never seen before. He touched her shoulder casually as they chatted, and she didn't pull away. I froze mid-conversation, confused and disoriented by the intimate body language. Just as I was about to march over there, I caught sight of Tiffany heading downstairs to the basement, another unknown guy trailing behind her. Warning bells started going off in my head, but I pushed the thoughts away. Tiffany wouldn't do that to me, would she? But I needed to know what was happening. As casually as I could muster, I followed them downstairs. I lingered in the hallway, ears straining. I could hear muffled voices and giggling coming from one of the bedrooms. My heart dropped into my stomach. Before I could decide what to do next, I heard footsteps thundering up the stairs from the basement. To my utter shock, two more strange men walked right past me, anger flashing in their eyes. Where is she? I heard one mutter under his breath. It suddenly dawned on me that we had all been duped. Tiffany wasn't just talking to other guys. She was openly fooling around with several of them right under my nose. I stumbled back upstairs, feeling like I might puke right there on Dan's new rug, and that's when the confrontation began. One by one, the other guys emerged from various corners of the party, having come to the same horrible realization. There were exclamations of, "Are you kidding me?" and "I can't believe this," as they pieced it all together. Tiffany somehow found herself caught in the middle of it all, eyes darting around guiltily. I didn't stick around to watch it all unfold. Pushing past the knot of angry guys, I stormed out, jumping in an Uber before anyone could stop me. My mind was spinning the entire ride home as I replayed the events of the night. How could I not have noticed? The casual outfits, the apprehension about me and my friends, it all suddenly made terrible sense. Needless to say, I immediately deleted and blocked Tiffany on any app or social media we were connected on. I was fuming that she could betray and deceive so many people like that. For days afterwards, I alternated between pure rage and feeling like a hopeless idiot. But after some time had passed, the anger faded into a dull disappointment. I was left wondering if I'd ever be able to trust someone fully again after being so utterly fooled. The dating scene suddenly seemed like nothing but a minefield of dishonesty and infidelity. In the end, I knew I had two choices. I could either become cynical and jaded, putting up walls to protect myself, or I could choose to have faith again. Though my trust was badly shaken, I realized I owed it to myself to be open to meeting someone real someday. I deleted all my dating apps for a while, wanting to reset and focus on myself. And who knows? Maybe when I'm ready to put myself back out there, I'll meet someone honest through friends or at a party or just living life. For now, I'm working on recognizing red flags and knowing my worth, lessons learned the hard way. But I refuse to believe they're all monsters, right? The day I met Valerie was one I'll never forget. After taking some time for myself following a bad breakup, I decided I was ready to start dating again. My friend convinced me to try one of those trendy new dating apps, saying it was a great way to meet people. I was skeptical at first, but figured I had nothing to lose by setting up a simple profile. After a few weeks of lackluster matches and boring conversations, I started chatting with Valerie. There was something magnetic about her. She was witty, flirtatious, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. Her profile picture showed a stunning woman, almost too beautiful to be real. She had full, pillowy lips, piercing green eyes, and smooth olive skin. I was mesmerized by her exotic look and couldn't believe someone who looked like a supermodel was giving me the time of day. We really hit it off right from the start. Talking for hours about books, art, music, it was effortless. The conversation flowed smoothly, and I found myself eagerly awaiting her messages. When she suggested meeting up for coffee, I quickly agreed. My curiosity piqued. I was also a bit apprehensive, skeptical that she could really look as jaw-dropping in person as she did online. We picked a cozy cafe downtown that I'd been to a few times before. I arrived early and snagged a table by the window so I could watch for her. I ordered an Americano, my leg bouncing nervously as I waited. Thoughts raced through my mind about whether this was some elaborate catfish scheme or if I was actually about to go on a date with a bona fide knockout. Finally, I saw Valerie enter the cafe, clad in a slinky black dress and heels. My eyes widened. She was even more stunning in real life. However, as she got closer, I noticed something was not quite right. Her lips protruded unnaturally, swollen and overfilled like she'd gotten bad lip injections. Her flawless skin had an almost waxy, smooth appearance that seemed artificial. Her cheekbones were extremely prominent and angular. Even the slope of her nose looked surgically altered. Up close, it was obvious she had extensive plastic surgery done. Her beauty now seemed exaggerated and distorted, falling into the uncanny valley. She gave me a broad smile as she approached, which only accentuated her puffy, overdone lips and cheeks. I smiled back weakly, feeling confused and a bit disturbed by her appearance. We exchanged slightly awkward hugs before sitting down across from each other. I tried to shake off my unease as we started chatting. The conversation began pleasantly enough. We discussed current events, the weather, and other neutral topics. But it soon took a troubling turn when Valerie started telling me about her past. She went into extreme detail about surviving a severe car accident years ago that left her face mangled and disfigured. She described enduring many agonizing reconstructive operations in an effort to regain some semblance of normalcy. As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes and her voice took on a pleading, emotive tone. I shifted in my seat, totally caught off guard and unsure how to respond appropriately. She seemed to be fishing for sympathy and validation by revealing her traumatic history and body image struggles. I felt manipulated yet also pitied her obvious pain and suffering. Trying to subtly change the subject, I brought up some local events happening that weekend, hoping for lighter conversation. But Valerie kept steering us back to darker matters, like her deep-seated insecurities and harrowing health issues. After over an hour of sitting there politely listening, I knew I had to get out of there. Between the eerie surgical enhancements and the heavy emotional manipulation, I was thoroughly creeped out. I made up a quick excuse about having an early client meeting in the morning and slipped out while she was in the restroom. I felt a twinge of guilt, costing her like that, but mostly immense relief as I hurried to my car and drove off. Something about Valerie set off alarm bells. I sensed she was unstable and potentially dangerous on some level. I decided to delete my dating app profile for a while after that bizarre first date. It opened my eyes to the risky side of online dating. You just never know who someone really is or what they're after. I realized I had likely dodged a bullet with Valerie. Her beautiful facade obviously disguised major issues lurking beneath the surface. These days, I'm much more cautious and selective when venturing back into dating. I take things slowly, getting to know someone in low-pressure public settings before committing further. At even a hint of shadiness or manipulation, I don't hesitate to move on. I've learned to trust my instincts when someone seems off. No amount of physical beauty is worth ignoring red flags. Who knows what might have transpired if I had disregarded those initial warning signs with Valerie. I'm grateful I listened to my gut and got out unscathed. That bizarre first date taught me important lessons about looking beyond appearances and being vigilant about my safety. I now know that's infinitely more valuable than pursuing any prospect, no matter how superficially alluring they may seem. Staying true to myself and avoiding potentially dangerous situations is the wisest path. I won't soon forget that fateful encounter as a reminder to proceed with care into the unpredictable world of modern dating. It was just another typical night of mindlessly swiping through profiles on the latest trendy dating app. Going through guy after guy when one popped up that immediately caught my eye. He went by the name Jake and his photo showed a clean-cut, attractive man who looked to be around my age, with warm brown eyes and a kind, approachable smile. His bio was witty and intriguing, mentioning he enjoyed unique hobbies like glassblowing, camping, and bushcraft. I quickly swiped right, feeling a flutter of excitement in my chest when we matched instantly. We started chatting right away and hit it off with ease. The conversation flowed effortlessly as we bounced from our favorite movies to childhood memories to hopes and dreams for the future. I found myself instantly comfortable opening up to Jake in a way I hadn't experienced with other matches. He came across as charming, intelligent, and genuinely interested in learning all about me as an individual. We seemed to just click right off the bat. Within a few days, Jake and I had exchanged numbers and were texting regularly from morning to night. I felt like I really knew him on a deeper level and was amazed at how much we had in common. We could chat for hours about any topic under the sun, and there was never a lull. Jake was funny, easygoing, and an amazing listener. For the first time in forever, I was really excited about someone I had met online. When Jake eventually asked me out for a proper first date, I eagerly agreed, and we made plans to meet for dinner at a cozy little Italian restaurant downtown that Friday night. As the date approached, I found myself taking extra time getting ready, fussing over my hair, makeup, and outfit, wanting to look perfect. I was giddy with the possibility that this could lead to something real. I arrived at the restaurant before Jake and waited nervously by the hostess stand, heart fluttering with anticipation. Right on time, I saw him round the corner, looking just as handsome as his photos, but a bit jittery and fidgety. I brushed it off as normal first date nerves as we were led to our table. However, once seated across from each other, I started to notice more odd little behaviors that set off faint alarm bells in my mind. Jake's leg bounced nervously under the table throughout the meal, and he kept shifting positions in his seat every few minutes. He barely touched his food, just pushing it around the plate, and seemed distracted, compulsively checking his phone. A few times, Jake completely zoned out mid-sentence, staring blankly over my shoulder with furrowed brows before snapping back to our conversation. But then he would quickly compliment me effusively, with an edge of desperation, as if to make up for his lapses in attention. Though we were conversing, I couldn't shake the creeping sense that something was off. When the check came, Jake insisted on paying the entire bill despite my protests. As we left the restaurant, he casually mentioned not having a stable place to stay recently, his voice laden with meaning. I brushed it off with an awkward laugh, but felt his intense gaze boring into me, desperate and tinged with hope. As we walked to my car, Jake stayed unsettlingly close, our arms constantly brushing. I couldn't tell if it was innocent obliviousness or something more calculating. The date ended amicably enough, but driving home I was left with an unsettled pit in my stomach that something wasn't right. Over the next week, I noticed Jake's texts becoming more frequent and fixated specifically on spending time together at my apartment. No matter how politely I changed the subject, he would always circle back with an odd intensity, implying he knew my schedule and location. I also began noticing unfamiliar cars idling near my building complex at odd hours. My unease continued to grow, but I kept making excuses, not wanting to believe my gut instincts. I figured maybe Jake was just awkward and didn't pick up on social cues. One late night after meeting friends for drinks, I arrived home to find a shadowy figure sitting on my living room couch. I quickly flicked on the lights, heart pounding, only to reveal a disheveled Jake who had dozed off waiting for me. Despite my demands that he leave immediately, he refused, a desperate, unhinged look in his eyes. He begged to stay, claiming to have nowhere else to go and insisting we could be together. Terrified by his presence yet resolved to remain calm, I firmly reiterated he needed to leave or I'd call the police. When he still didn't budge, I followed through on the threat. The responding officers informed me Jake had a criminal record of stalking and preying upon vulnerable women he met online. He would manipulate them into providing housing by faking emotional intimacy. I was horrified and disgusted at how close I'd come to being another one of his victims. In the months following, I found myself constantly on edge, jumping at every little noise and fearing Jake would reappear. I was angry at myself for ignoring red flags and so quickly trusting a stranger. I avoided dating apps entirely for a long time, worried I couldn't recognize predatory behaviors again. When I finally cautiously returned to online dating, I was much more guarded, scrutinizing every interaction for anything suspicious. With time, therapy, and perspective, I've learned to move forward in a healthier way, no longer viewing every match as a potential threat. But I'll never forget that traumatic experience, how it opened my eyes to the dark side of online dating. I'm so grateful I listened to my intuition in time and escaped unscathed. Now I'm much more careful about who I let into my life, virtual or otherwise. My story serves as a powerful reminder. Always trust your gut and don't ignore red flags, no matter how promising a stranger may seem. I still get chills when I think back to that fateful day I matched with who I thought was the perfect guy on Swipe Right. His name was Matt, he was 28, and his profile picture showed a handsome face with warm brown eyes and a kind smile. We started messaging and really hit it off right away. Matt was thoughtful, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. After a week or so of nonstop messaging, I agreed to meet up with him for dinner. I was so excited for our date that I spent way too much time obsessing over my outfit and hair. I finally settled on a flirty dress and heels with lightly curled hair. When I arrived at the restaurant, Matt was already seated at a table. I suddenly felt my breath in the middle of my throat as I took in just how attractive he was in person. He stood up, gave me a hug, and pulled out my chair. What a gentleman. We sat down and fell into easy conversation. Matt was just as charming in real life as he was over text. I found myself laughing at his jokes and staring into his eyes, thinking how lucky I was to have matched with such a great guy. As the date progressed, Matt started to seem strangely familiar. I brushed it off at first, figuring he just had one of those faces, but the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. When he excused himself to the restroom, I tried to think back to where I could possibly know him from. That's when it hit me. Those eyes, that smile, a little scar on his chin. Matt was the guy who grabbed my phone out of my hand and took off running a couple months ago. I remembered calling after him and chasing him down the street, but he was too fast. My heart started pounding. What were the chances my phone thief would end up being my dream Tinder match? Maybe it was just an unbelievable coincidence. When Matt returned, I casually asked him about where he was from and what he did for work. His answers lined up exactly with the snippets I remembered about the phone thief. I tried to act normal the rest of the dinner while figuring out what to do. Should I confront him? Make a scene? Pretend I didn't know and try to get my phone back another time? None of the options seemed good. When the bill came, Matt grabbed it before I could even reach for my wallet. "Please let me," he said with that charming smile. I hesitated. On the one hand, I didn't owe this man anything. But on the other, a free meal sounded nice. In the end, I let him pay. We left the restaurant and Matt walked me to my car. He leaned in for a kiss, but I dodged it, saying I had to get going. A look of annoyance flashed across his face, but he quickly masked it. "I had a really great time," he said. "Let me know when you get home safe." I gave a non-committal smile and got into my car. As I drove away, I let out a shaky breath. What was I going to do? I decided my best move was to block him on SwipRite as soon as I got home. I could try to move on and forget this crazy coincidence ever happened. When I got to my apartment, I immediately opened the app to block Matt. But before I could, a new message from him popped up. "I had a feeling you recognized me. I have to say, I was surprised to see your face on SwipRite after our last encounter. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Let me make it up to you over dinner tomorrow night. I'd love to return what's rightfully yours." My blood ran cold. How did he know where I lived? Was he following me? I frantically swiped to block and report his account. But oddly, the buttons were grayed out. I tried closing the app and reopening it, but Matt's profile was gone. Great, now he could just make a new one and I'd never know it was him. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning with the lights on. Every little sound made me jump. I kept checking that the door was locked and peered out the windows for any sign of Matt. The next morning, groggy on edge, I called out of work. I decided I had to go to the police, otherwise I would feel this way forever and would constantly look over my shoulder. I told the police everything about him and the incident of him grabbing my phone. I had heard nothing from Matt since his last message, which also made me feel uneasy, but later that week I got a phone call from the police saying that they had caught the thief. They said he was a repeat offender and had loads of stolen phones and other gadgets in his apartment. A part of me felt safer now, knowing that he was in jail, but the coincidence of meeting someone who stole my phone on a dating app just like that has really traumatized me. I was lucky enough to stay unharmed, but what if Matt had done something to me and harmed me in some way? Just the thought of it makes me anxious. I think I'll be staying away from social media dating apps for a while.
Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.